Hi everyone, welcome to the SYA Admissions Google Hangout. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kate Martell, the Admissions Marketing Manager here at SYA. And in the room with me, I have Emily, who's going to be monitoring the chat box. Emily, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Emily O'Leary, and I'm the Marketing Communications Coordinator here at SYA Abroad.
She'll be monitoring the chat questions, so if you have any questions throughout this Hangout, please put them in the chat box on the side. If you want to include a country that you're interested in, we'll do our best to address the question specifically to your country. And if you want to add in your name and the school that you're from, that would be great. We also have Tonada. Tonada, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tonada Koch. I'm an Assistant Director of Admissions here at SYA Abroad. I'm also an alumna of Spain 2009.
And LJ, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Lauren Jur, Associate Director of Admissions here at SYA, and I have been with SYA for about 4.5 years now. So happy to have you all joining us tonight.
Thanks, LJ. So we're just going to give a quick overview of the agenda for the night. We'll do a brief introduction of SYA for those of you who are unfamiliar with us or maybe hearing about us for the first time. Then we'll talk to Tonada a little bit about her experience abroad. And then we'll open it up to questions from everyone. So again, put those questions in the chat box on the side. So LJ, if you wouldn't mind giving us a brief overview of SYA, who we are, and the different countries that we have available.
Absolutely. SYA Abroad is a year-long academic homestay program for students during their junior or senior year of high school. Each year we enroll over 60 students to attend each of our 4 schools in China, France, Italy, and Spain. Our students come from both public and private high schools from across the United States. This year we have enrolled 234 students from 149 unique high schools across 30 states. Something to know about each of the 4 schools, there are different requirements. So in France and Spain, we require students that apply to SYA to have studied at least through level 2 of the language. That is because each of those schools teaches exclusively in French and Spanish, with the exception of your math and English course. In Italy and China, we accept students who are beginners in the language through students who are maybe more advanced. So if you are a beginner in the language, you can apply to Italy and to China. So that's a little bit more on those 4 schools. Throughout, we'll cover off what makes each school unique based on your questions.
And again, if you have questions and you're just joining us, if you want to add them in the group chat, and if you want to also add what country you're interested in, we'll do our best to talk specifically to that country. So we're going to talk to Tonada a little bit. As we mentioned, she is an alum of 2009. And I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about your experience about finding out about SYA and why you decided to apply.
Of course. I had a kind of a unique experience about how I found out about SYA. I was babysitting one night and happened upon a promotional video for SYA, and it had students and teachers talking about their experience in SYA, and I was completely enchanted, taken away by what they were saying, the incredible classes. They were speaking in Spanish. It was just an incredible video. They did a really good job, and I all of a sudden realized that's what I wanted to do more than anything. And so I ended up applying, and it was the best decision I ever made.
So where were you living? Where were you going to school when you found out about SYA?
Yes, I'm from the Seattle area, and I was going to a public school in my hometown. And nobody knew about SYA, so it was a really unique experience. But when I got there, I met all sorts of students from all over the United States, both public and private schools. So it's a really cool diversity of students that we get at SYA.
So tell us a little bit about your year and why you're glad that you went on SYA.
Well,
because you were glad that you went on SYA.
Yes, there are a million reasons. I could probably give about 1,000 realistically, but so many reasons why I'm glad I went. But probably most importantly is the growth and the maturity and the sense of compassion that I gained through my experience with SYA. Not only living in a foreign country, but also the structure of how SYA works, working together, continuing with the academics. It made me into a stronger person individually and part of my family and friends. There was just I could go on forever, but I think that I became a better person, as cliche as that sounds. It's true. I really love who I am now, and a large part of that is because of my experience with SYA.
Yeah. So school year abroad, we always talk about the first word of school year abroad is school. So do you want to talk a little bit about the classes and what they were like?
Yes. So they're structured so similarly to your home school. So it's really a nice experience being able to have a smooth transition. You take a math and an English class, which are taught exactly the same way by American faculty as they would be back home. So that's kind of a nice ease into this whole new adventure, this whole new environment that can be challenging at sometimes. I definitely felt like I was challenged academically to the perfect level. I felt like I was always wanting to seek and learn new things. I was never bored ever. Some of the best classes I ever took were at SYA. Incredible experience. But it's definitely structured the way it is back in the United States, which is nice to know.
And the curriculum is also tailored to each school. So it's we take advantage of the fact that you're abroad, that you're in each of these countries, and really blend what you're learning with what you're experiencing out in the country and in the cities that you're in.
Oh, yeah.
So after school, what were some of the things that you did? What type of extracurriculars did you do or did your friends do and that type of thing out in Spain?
All 4 schools have incredible opportunities for students, both new and old activities. Old meaning things that you do back home. I know a lot of students pursue sports. They want to continue with sports or music. I decided to do Brazilian martial arts called capoeira. It was really fun. I had an incredible experience getting to know new kids my own age and adults as well, and practice my Spanish. But each school has a plethora of opportunities for students. It's pretty incredible. And
we have, LJ, do you want to talk just for 1 second about the coordinators
Certainly.
at each school?
So at each one of our 4 schools, we have an activities coordinator, and their role on campus is to work with our students to help them identify different extracurricular opportunities in their host city. And our activities coordinator has the contacts. So it's your job to come to us and tell us what you're looking for, but then they'll sit with you and help you identify different opportunities that are available and help you get connected and started and all of that. They're a great resource in each one of the locations, and they really help our students feel grounded in the community that they live in.
Great, thanks. So a typical day, you go to school, you'll do some extracurriculars after school. When you get home and you go to your family, what was your host family like?
Great question. Probably the most important part of your whole experience. I don't care where you are, in China, France, Italy, or Spain. The most important connection that you're going to make over there is your host family, and it lasts a lifetime. I just sent a letter to my host mom. She's a little bit older. I lived with her. She was, I think when I was there, she was about 60, and she was so caring and nurturing. And when I got home, we'd cook dinner together. We'd watch a TV show in Spanish together and laugh about how corny it was, because it usually was an American TV show being dubbed in Spanish. I got to go on road trips. I was invited to family events. You really become a part of the family. You're included with everything, and it's quite a spectacular bond that you make with them.
Nice.
And our host families come in all shapes and sizes. So there are some families where there might be children in the home, maybe younger children, children your age, or children a little bit older. So you will have the ability to have a host family that matches your interests and your personality. So we take your say and sort of your desires into account when we place you with a family, which is all done from abroad. We don't do it here in the U.S. So the people that know the host families best make the placements.
So a question we often receive is what happens over winter break? So how did you spend your winter break in Spain?
That's a great question. I spent my winter break in kind of a unique way. Normally students have family come over, whether that's to Europe or to China, or they'll do some traveling while they're abroad with friends from SYA. I decided to stay with my host family the whole time, and we went to this northern little remote village in Spain. It was absolutely spectacular. and there was only about 150 people living there. Not one of them spoke English, and so the whole time I got to practice speaking in Spanish, picking almonds from an almond tree in the snow. I didn't know almonds grew on trees, so I learned something. But it was definitely my most cherished memory from the whole experience, I'd have to say.
Nice. So you mentioned travel. As part of SYA, there's a lot of school-led travel. What was one of your favorite school trips?
Hands down, the trip to northern Spain, San Sebastian. Each country, each school, and all of our schools have extensive educational travel that really caters, as LJ was saying, to what you're learning about in the classroom. You get to go and see the places that you have been reading about, that you've been talking about, that you discuss. And so that hands-on experience is really amazing. But my favorite trip was to San Sebastian, the city in the Basque country. Most incredible. It was just amazing. I ate the best food that I've ever had in my life. I made incredible friends. We went for a bike ride in the pouring rain, and as miserable as that sounds, it was actually really fun. And I've been back to San Sebastian, my favorite city in the whole world, 3 times since that trip. So
Nice.
definitely.
Nice.
Made a mark.
So when did you realize that you were fluent in Spanish? What was there a moment or an aha moment?
An aha.
Something like that.
Yeah, definitely. A combo. Number 1 would be when you start dreaming in the foreign language. I was just last week talking to a girl who was in China last year, and she said it was the strangest experience having a dream in Chinese. She felt like it was being narrated in Chinese, like watching a movie, watching somebody else's movie. And it's a great indication that you are really immersed in the culture. I also participated in a play, and when you memorize your lines and you've analyzed the play and you are participating and actively putting on a piece of work, an artwork, that for me was a big step forward. I felt like I was fluent. I felt like I could talk about current events. I could talk with my host family about whatever I wanted. If you understand jokes, that's a great indication as well, because sometimes they go right over your head.
Maybe at the beginning of the year, but not by the end of the year.
Exactly.
So talking about speaking lots of Spanish and having all these experiences in small towns and villages and speaking Spanish with your classmates, why do you think it's important to go for the whole year?
Oh, it's vital. I will say that I went back in college and I spent a semester in Spain again because I completely fell in love with the Spanish culture and the language. But a year is absolutely necessary in order to solidify your language skills. Professionals say it takes 4 to 5 months to be able to understand and really learn and know a language. And then you need to have at least a couple more months on top of that of practicing the language, really understanding the cultural context, because you could speak the language fluently, but if you don't understand what Spanish-speaking countries' cultures have to say, it doesn't matter. And so a year is absolutely necessary.
Yeah. So if you had a piece of advice for a student who's considering SYA, what would you tell them?
Well, number 1, it was the best year of my life, and I've had a lot of great years, so that's saying something. And it's the adventure of a lifetime. And to be able to do this, have this opportunity at such a young age, it will propel you into a whole new world. You will catch the travel bug. You will catch the exploration bug. You'll never want to stop learning new things and meeting new people. It makes you become much more confident and independent. It's quite an experience.
Nice. Thanks, Tonada.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to some of the questions that we've been getting. Emily has been monitoring some of your questions. So if you have some more, keep that up. Keep them coming in the chat. So Emily said we have a lot of questions on classes. Am I right?
Yes, there's a lot of people that are asking what a typical day looks like, how long class periods are.
So do you guys want to talk about that a little
I'm
bit?
gonna let Tonada.
Yeah.
She lived it.
I lived it. Each school is slightly different, just like in the United States. Some schools start at 7:30 in the morning, some start at 8:30. So it depends, but it's going to be largely structured the same as it would be back home. You get up in the morning, you either walk to school or take a bus. All the host families are pretty centrally located, which is great at all 4 of our schools. And then you are going to be taking a math and an English class. So I believe when I was taking them, they were each an hour. So the class periods are usually about an hour long. And then you will be taking a language class that's required of you. And then you get and depending on which school you're at, you get to choose your electives. And so you get 3 extra electives besides your math, your English, and your language, and then you get to choose another 3. And so usually the day is over. I remember it being over by 4 usually.
Yeah, sometime mid-afternoon.
Yeah, because in Spain we took a longer lunch time, and that was great because it gave me a chance to do my homework at school and kind of have the support of the faculty and the students there, which was really nice.
And it's important to note that each of the schools, the way that the curriculum's been built is to really hone in on things that are French and Spanish and Italian and Chinese. So the electives that you have all reflect that. And so everything that you're studying has an eye towards the local culture and the language and the history. And I think that's part of what our students really enjoy. So in addition to math and English, you can take courses like economics, political science, art, and literature. So you can really have a unique junior or senior year experience in terms of the course offerings at each school.
Right. And we also just introduced AP Science in China and Environmental Science in France and Spain, which are both taught in French and Spanish. So
They
that
are a unique
a
challenge.
really interesting layer into that as well. Emily, any other questions that are coming in right now?
Sure. We just got a question here that's asking about maybe job opportunities or extracurriculars, things that you can do on your own time while you're in at SYA.
That's a great question. Because you're going to be on a student visa, you can't be technically employed, but you can always go back and work abroad if you can get a job, which I hope you do. But there's definitely volunteer opportunities, tutoring opportunities. I worked at a local school, an elementary school, once a week, and I went there after school, played with kids, taught them English. There's all sorts of things you can do. You can do kind of an internship maybe at a local newspaper. I don't know. It depends on how proactive you are, and it also depends on the connections that we can make through SYA. And we have incredible, all 4 schools have incredible connections. The coordinator, as LJ was saying, is really well equipped to meet those. But yes, activities, all sorts. I mean, you can find pretty much anything there besides lacrosse, which is a uniquely American sport.
And we really like to see our students get involved in different extracurriculars, whether that be sports or the arts or community service, because it shows that you are committed to becoming part of that local community. And based on conversations with alums, it really strengthens the tie that you have with that host city, and can really elevate your experience to the next level. In addition to being a great way to practice your language skills outside of school.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Let's see. Here's another one about whether your classes are taught in English or the language, and if your homework assignments have to be turned in English.
Good question. So it really depends. In France and Spain, majority of your coursework is done in French and Spanish, including your homework is done in French and Spanish. You'll be amazed at how quickly your brain sort of switches over and you're able to adjust and meet the demands of being totally in the language. In Italy and China, you have, but the other courses are taught in English, and we'll move to more language-based instruction as the year goes on. So we start the year in English and then try and transition over into more Italian and Chinese.
So break you in easy.
Right, our goal at SYA is to keep you challenged, but not to overwhelm you.
Well put.
Here's another one about classes. They're just wondering what the usual class size is, and is it easy to find time to get help from teachers?
Oh my goodness. So yes, and depending on where you go to school now, public or private school, the class sizes are going to vary for you and what you're used to. I was used to a larger class, probably about 30 students in it. When I got to SYA, it was amazing to have a class of, 10 to 20 students in it maximum, really hands-on, everyone's participating. Teachers know, if you're struggling, they understand what's going on. You can have incredible dialogues with them and really hone in on what's challenging you, or if you need more of a challenge, they're completely willing to help you out in every respect. And that actually helped me in college, because I had a lot of friends and peers who were nervous or didn't want to talk to the professors in college. And because of SYA, because we really want you to have a great relationship with your teachers and your students and the students that you're going to school with, that helped me feel more confident about talking to teachers and how important that is in your education, because they should know what's going on, and you should know what they want from you as a student as well. So no, it's great.
We're very fortunate, because we are a smaller school, that we have a 5-to-1 teacher to faculty ratio.
Yeah.
So
Teacher to student.
Teacher to student, thank you. I knew I had that wrong. Teacher to student ratio.
Great. I know you just mentioned the college process, so we just had a question about if you're a senior looking to attend SYA, how does the college process work?
Great question. We are a registered test site, and we have a college counselor on campus, on school, on site at each of our 4 schools. We work really hard to make sure that our seniors are taken care of, and that we have a great line of communication with your college counselor back home. We encourage juniors who are applying for their senior year to visit schools this summer or this spring while they're in the United States, because obviously when you're abroad, it's pretty hard to come back and visit schools in the United States. But they have a great setup for juniors and seniors through the college process, and we help to guide and define each student and figure out what school will work best for them. So it's a great setup.
Great. Here's another one that says, what was the most difficult aspect of the SYA experience?
Probably the small.
I know.
Tough question. Probably at first it was how small the shower was, and that was just a European thing. I'm tall, and so it was really weird to be going into a small shower. But I think besides that,
That's not bad if that's one of the most.
Like,
you can work with that.
We can work with that. It was definitely something you can work with. The first couple of weeks are challenging as far as the language. No matter, if you're fluent, well, if you're fluent and you're coming to SYA, then you're lucky. But I felt like I had pretty good Spanish skills, and I got there and I didn't understand what my host mom was saying at first. But it just flies by. Literally, it's the first week maximum. It's doing some, gestures here and there. The basics are covered and you'll be fine. But probably the hardest part for me was saying goodbye. And I was thinking about it actually just a couple of weeks ago, because I got to see a fellow SYA student down in Philadelphia. And we were talking about how much we forgot we had cried so hard on the bus on the way leaving. And, it's true. It's really hard to leave. But it's worth every day, every minute that you spend over there.
Nice. Here's another specific one about classes. They're just wondering about the level of proficiency that most students have in the language before they go abroad.
That's a good question.
It's a great question.
It really varies.
Do you want to just mention again for some people that might not have been on at the beginning about the language requirements?
Sure.
For each country?
So for France and Spain, we require that you've at least completed level 2 of French or Spanish to attend either one of those schools, because the coursework is done in French and Spanish during the academic school year. Many of our students will come in with a few years, but because we are enrolling students during their junior and senior year, there are many students that are entering level 3. Of the language. There are other students that come in with 6 years under their belt. But it's funny how you sort of all even out at some point during the school year once you're immersed in the language. And then in the case of Italy and China, in Italy, most of our students come as beginners in Italian. And it's great because we have faculty that are accustomed to working with students who haven't previously studied Italian, and so they know how to teach you best. And then in China, it's really a mixed bag. We have Probably close to half of our students coming in with no previous study of Chinese, and the other half of our students who have studied Chinese for a couple of years. So there it's really mixed, but I will say in the case of China, sometimes our beginners at the end of the year have surpassed their peers who had already studied the language, largely because it's a tonal language. So hearing it and learning it in country is actually an easier way to process and to learn the language. So there's a whole range. Sorry, that's not a really clear-cut answer.
Yeah, and to add to that, there's different language classes. So you'll be put in, you take a test when you get there, and you'll be put in a classroom where you are being challenged, but you're not overwhelmed, as LJ was saying. So you're going to be with other students who are at your same level, which is really nice. And by the end of the year, you all are on the same level, which is encouraging and wonderful.
And later, not now, but we do have a short little video up on our YouTube channel from one of our teachers, Ernie Chen in China, who uses math to kind of describe the way that you'll be able to increase your language learning at SYA. So check that out later.
We just had a great question about the financial aid process and just a little bit about how that works.
Sure. Absolutely. So this is a perfect opportunity to talk to you a little bit about our deadlines. The application deadline for the next school year, for anyone interested in applying for the merit scholarship, that deadline is February 2nd. For the regular application deadline, that deadline is February 16th. We offer 16 merit-based scholarships, 4 per country, so 4 per SYA school, that are based entirely on the merit of the applicant. I would encourage you, if you have a strong academic profile, if you are engaged within your local community, and you really have a desire to become fluent in another language and are working towards that currently, apply for one of the merit scholarships. They represent $15,000 towards the cost of tuition. And then in addition to that, we also offer financial aid. Financial aid is need-based. Your family needs to apply for aid. There are instructions on our website, sya.org, that highlight the process. For those of you coming from a school, an independent school, if you're already applying for aid, the process is very similar. For those of you coming from a public school where this is new, there are great instructions online that highlight the entire process. But you will have to get your parents involved to apply for financial aid. So start to talk to them now. We offer our own aid. This year, 55% of our student body is receiving financial aid, and the average grant is almost half the cost of tuition. So we are committed as an organization to making SYA more financially feasible for more families. But you can apply for the merit scholarships. February 2nd is your deadline. Financial aid, February 16th is that deadline. So those are important dates to keep in mind over the coming months.
Okay. Great. We have a question that's coming in about how we run our own schools as opposed to having students go to a local high school.
Yeah, great question.
Great question.
So SYA independently runs and operates our own 4 schools. The reason we do that is how we are able to allow students to get academic credit for the work that they do. And your current school grants the credit. But they see SYA as an accredited academic institution and recognizes that our academic rigor matches up with American schools, and the curriculum matches as well. And that's why we hire our own faculty, both local and US based. So your English teacher, your math teacher, and your college counselor are American faculty that come to teach for SYA. So in those 3 core areas, you are going to have American faculty so that there's a pretty seamless transition for those pieces. And then our local faculty teach you Chinese history and Chinese language and really are the experts in their field. And that's why there's a mix of US and local faculty. And the reason we run our own schools is because we then get to create our own curriculum, which meets the needs of our students who come from the US to join us for a year.
And we give out grades and comments on a regular basis, just like your
Actually, they just went out last week. Grades and comments went out to the schools and to parents. So we run like an American school. We're smaller, which is great for us because it allows us more flexibility. So we're smaller, but we run like an American school in a foreign country. So you will have the support and the guidance during the course of the year of an academic advisor, your college counselor, in addition to our other faculty on staff. And each one of our schools is run by someone we call the resident director, who serves as our head of school. And they run the ship. And they're also a great resource for you and are actively involved in the lives of our student body.
We just got a great question in that says, what if you're interested in more than one country? Can you apply to more than one?
Another good question.
Yeah, these are good.
So long as you meet the requirements. So if you're applying to Spain and say France, you have to have at least 2 years in both languages. So long as you meet the criteria, yes, you can apply to more than one country, but we do ask that you choose a first choice and a second choice. And you can indicate that on the online application itself.
Great. Let's see, here's a question about travel. They said, is it easy to travel around the country? And do you want to talk about some trips you might have gone on? Or?
Yeah, I'll also touch base on our independent travel for the European countries, because that's a really important component of your education, is that you not only are going to be taking educational trips for over, I believe, 3 weeks, and in China for over 5 weeks. That's with your classmates. That's teacher-led. It's a really great experience to be able to see the places that you've been learning about. But then in February, or I believe, is it in February?
Winter.
In winter, right? Once you've been there for several months and you have shown that you've been keeping up with your academics and you have been a good student and you have shown good language skills, then you can talk with the resident director, apply, and talk with your parents back home and create an itinerary for an independent trip that you want to take. Let's say that there's a long weekend and there's a Friday off because there's a local holiday. And you want to go and celebrate that local holiday in Paris, for example. And there's a big celebration that's going to happen there, a parade. And you want to go there. You book your train ticket, you book a hotel or a hostel. You have to get it approved by the resident director and by your parents back home. But then you go off and you get to have this incredible adventure by yourself. It's a sense of maturity, and you have to earn it. But it's definitely one of the best aspects of being able to be at SYA, because you do get that opportunity.
And students usually go in groups of 2 or 3.
Yes.
Correct.
And just remember, with freedom comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it is an earned privilege, but it's something that our students have come to enjoy over the years.
Yes.
Great. Going off of similar, like we just said about travel, someone asked, what was your weekend like? What did you do for fun outside of class?
That's a great question. I spent a lot of time with my host family. I had 2 host siblings. They were both in their 30s, but we'd go and have lunch, a huge lunch, because in Europe there's always some weekend lunch. It's like a 4-hour ordeal. And I also made quite a few Spanish friends. So I'd go over to their house. I remember they always were wanting me to do something like American style. And so I'd do sort of an exchange. I'd say, okay, well, we're going to do something Spanish. You take me to a cool park that you like, or a museum, or we'll do something typical Spanish, and then I'll do something typical American. And so, one weekend I'd make pancakes for them, and they were like all great. They didn't know what pancakes were. The next weekend, we were going to the river and taking this long walk. It depends on where you are, obviously, but you end up spending a lot of time with your host family, a lot of time with the American friends. You get to practice your Spanish or Italian, go get some gelato down the street. It's very much, I don't know, it's not a huge burden. The weekend isn't a burden of, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? It just sort of happens. You find your groove and you find your friends, and you have an amazing time.
Yeah. For example, in France, in Rennes, Saturday mornings are the
Yes.
huge open air market, and
Yeah.
you probably go there with your host family and your friends, and everybody goes, and it's just blocks and blocks of fresh food and fresh fruits and vegetables.
And some
Yeah.
of the most beautiful flowers
Oh
I've
my
ever
God.
seen in my life
Yeah.
that you could buy on the street. And You're right.
Yeah.
Baguettes for days.
Oh my God, baguettes for days. So there's lots of different things that you can
Yes.
do in each city.
Great. Here's another great question. They ask, what do you find to be the most valuable quality in a prospective applicant?
Great question.
So what are we
Wow,
looking for in
darn
an
it, I like
applicant?
this
Those guys,
Yeah.
really good questions.
We are looking for students who are adventurous, courageous, looking to spread their wings before heading off to college, and really having a life-changing experience, and that are open to that. And so I would say strong applicants are students who have a strong academic profile. We want to send students abroad who are going to succeed. And that's what we look for the most, is qualities that we think will help you be successful abroad. And that's the ability to adapt to new surroundings, the ability to engage in whatever community you're in and get involved, and be an active participant. And you show us that by being an active participant in your current high school, in your current community. So there's a lot of different qualities that make a strong applicant. But really people who are adventurous, and looking to have this incredible journey with 65 other American classmates.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that if you haven't had the opportunity to have a grand adventure yet, that shouldn't get in your way. If you've got that adventurous bug, this is definitely the thing for you to do. We get students who have traveled abroad before. We get students who've never left their state before. It depends on how willing you are to try something new and have a new experience. And definitely part of you being here and asking us these questions, being engaged, being enthusiastic about this, that's a good sign. That's a great quality in an applicant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we hope you love the language too, because
Yeah.
that's a key component.
Yeah, and be
So
willing and be open-minded.
Be willing to
and-
put in the work in studying the language of the country that you're in. You'll find that committing yourself to a language will elevate this experience to the next level.
And one of the great things about the cities that each of our schools are in is that they're smaller and they know SYA. SYA's been here for 50 years. So the community, can recognize that you're there and you're willing and you're trying to speak Italian or you're trying to speak French. And they work with you and they understand and you kind of can come together, like Tonada said, the first week or so with their host family, that you're all trying.
Yeah.
And it makes things a lot easier.
Definitely.
Great. This is another good question. Do these grades go on your transcripts and do they count towards your school at home?
So you get a transcript from SYA, and typically what happens is your home school will roll that into their transcript. So yes, these grades do count.
Yes.
Students who attend SYA as a junior come back and rejoin their senior class. So you're not repeating a year. You're getting academic credit for that year. That being said, it's very important that you meet with your school administration to make sure that everything's in line before you attend SYA.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that point. For example, at my school, we had an American history requirement that obviously was not going to be taught in Spain. And so I just took that my senior year, and it was super easy. But you just have to start a conversation with your college counselor, make sure you're on the same level, on the same playing field. And yeah, it's great because you don't miss a beat. I came back for senior year, had an amazing senior year, felt like I was actually even more prepared for a lot of the AP courses that I was taking, that I could fit in with different students now that I hadn't before. Yeah, no, it's in colleges we'll see that those credits were abroad with SYA too, which is really cool.
Great. Here's a question about the workload. So how much nightly or weekly homework do you have, and how long does it take you each night? Very specific question.
Man, that was 5 years ago. I'm trying to not confuse it with college workload.
It really depends, I think, on the student, your study habits, your organizational skills, but we're not looking to overload you, so you're spending your entire year doing homework. Much of your learning at SYA takes place outside of the classroom, and we recognize that and account for that in terms of the homework. So I think you'll find the work that you're doing is more interactive. based on the travel that you're doing and connecting it to the country that you're living in. So I think the workload's different. You still have homework, but it is different, and we recognize that your experience is more than just you writing papers. So we do take that into account during the course of the year.
Great. Yeah, that kind of answers. We just had a question that said, do you have enough time to do other activities along with your homework? So,
Absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
SYA has created this really nice balance of work and exploring. And I say exploring because if you join a soccer team, you're exploring a whole new world because it's all in the local language. So there is an element of work and homework because it is school year abroad, but the first word is school. But there's also other components, and all of that is part of the experience.
Sure. So we probably have time for just one more question. If we didn't get to answer your question, we'll send everybody a follow-up email with our contact information so you can get in touch with us. Do we have one more question?
We did. We had a great question that you briefly touched on, but we were wondering how host families are matched up with students and where the families come from.
Sure.
Yeah, so each country has local faculty, as LJ was saying, and they work really hard to create great connections and relationships with different families in the area. Most of them are friends or cousins, and they know somebody who knows SYA and had an incredible experience with SYA. And so we do a lengthy vetting process to make sure that these families are willing and able to support the student and create a nurturing and fun environment for them, a space that's safe. So there is a lengthy process on the end in the actual country. And then from your end, you will fill out a questionnaire that, states your habits, what you like, what are your interests, what are your goals, what are your personality traits. And so then the faculty in each country will work really hard to make sure that you're matched with a family that will complement that. So there's different components that kind of put the whole thing together.
And sometimes we've even had generations of families that are host families. So when the mom was a child, she had a host sister, and now that she's an adult and has her own family, she's taking one of our students in for the year too. So sometimes it is multi-generational.
Exactly, which is pretty special.
Yeah. At SYA, we like to say that our students always have a second home in the world. And that's because of the relationships that they're able to build with their host family abroad. And that's something we're really proud of, that our students feel that connected to their family. So it is something we take very seriously and take the time that's necessary to make the right match for you and your future host family.
So really quickly, LJ, do you want to just talk about, do you want to hit those deadlines again and how
Absolutely.
someone can apply if they're interested?
So again, merit scholarship deadline, February 2nd. Regular application deadline, February 16th. Financial aid deadline, February 16th. Please go online to our website, sya.org, and you can find our online application. We would encourage you now, it's early November, great time to start your application. Once you submit part 1 of your application, we can actually connect you with an alumni interviewer, which is required for the app. We can connect you with them once we have application part 1, and that will give you a greater window to schedule a time to either Skype with them, meet with them for coffee. We see that as a big piece of the application, in that it's an opportunity for us to learn more about you and for you to learn more about us. And so that's a nice piece. Start working on your essays so you can have time over Thanksgiving break and Christmas break to proof them before submitting them. Now is also a great time to start to talk to your current teachers about submitting recs on your behalf. So we do require 4 letters of recommendation from your current English teacher, math teacher, language teacher, and advisor. So there are parts of the application, so you'll want to start working on it, but really getting part 1 in the next month or 2 will make you feel a lot better to have it done before life gets really crazy.
Yes.
And it's all
Definitely.
online, so it's pretty easy access. we've streamlined the process quite a bit in the last year.
And do you want to we'll say hi to those of you out there who have already applied.
Yes, there are a few of you, so
Applications are already rolling in.
we're excited. It's never too early to start.
Well, thanks everyone. Thanks Emily, Tonada, LJ. We'll be sending out a follow-up email with the link to this. It'll be up on our YouTube channel just right after the broadcast is over. And we'll be sending out our contact information. So if there were any questions that we didn't get to, we'll be sure to follow up with you if you just send us a quick email. Thanks everybody.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Your applications.